All right, Joey, let's talk about a group that hurt Illinois last year, I think we can say, because the special teams took a step back, especially with their lack of consistency, particularly in the punting game. There were some returns they gave up that hurt them. The one against Minnesota didn't end up hurting them, but cost them the lead at one point in that game. A return against Michigan led to a key field goal in the fourth quarter, and we know the punting was an issue last year with the lack of consistency. But my big storyline is we kind of overlooked this, but Robbie Disher is the third special teams coordinator in 3 years for Brett Bielema. Obviously, Ben Miller's health issues have been a part of that, and Ben now part of the program as the head coach analyst, and we wish him nothing but the best as he continues to fight cancer here. But it seems like there's been more positive news with that recently. But Robbie Disher brought in from Tulane, which Willie Fritz, usually pretty good at special teams, Joey. It seemed like a really strong hire on paper.
Yeah, it did. And Willie Fritz turned over special teams to Robbie Disher, which isn't like, if you're hearing that, you probably think, okay. But that's like Willie Fritz's deal is special teams. So for him to turn that over and have that trust in Robbie Disher, who's built a pretty good resume in a short amount of time as a special teams coordinator. To your point, I talked to Hugh Robertson when I know we'll get into him. This is fourth special teams coordinator.
Yeah.
He went from Bob Ligashevsky to Ben Miller to Sean Snyder to Robbie Disher. Like, that is a ton of turnover. It's a lot of different ideas, a lot of different philosophies. Not to say, well, that's why Hugh struggled last year, but there's just not been a lot of consistency there. I think the hope for them, obviously, is Robbie Disher solidifies that consistency, but it's a good hire. It seems like he's resonated well with that group. Those guys seem to really like being in his meetings, really like what he's pitching and how he teaches it, and they're buying into that. So, I mean, this looks like a good one. This really does. And I know special teams coordinator isn't the flashiest hire ever to come across a news cycle, but it looks like Brett Bielema, to pull him away from Willie Fritz, like, that's a mentor to him. So Willie to pull Fritz him away, that was a big deal.
Yeah, Willie Fritz is a heck of a coach. I mean, Tulane was really good last year, but he's just been so consistent. He's won at every level of college football. Kind of has that Lance Leipold thing going for him, Jerry Kill thing going for him. I do want to mention Chris Hurd, special teams analyst. Obviously, can't coach on the field, but plays a role in that special teams. Max Rosenthal is a special teams quality control coach. So grad assistants always come in big here because they get some more hands-on training sometimes with some of these guys. So I want to mention them, but this is a group that wasn't great last year. And let's talk about the kicking, though. Caleb Griffin did, start off rough. 4 of 8 in his first 3 games. 2 of those games were not very good. I know he had some longer field goals there, but this is a big break, and he struggled out of the gates. But really, after his injury, had a hip injury last year, really settled in. And listen, Fabrizio Pintone, there's a question. Is he going to steal the job after making 7 straight field goals in really important games? Iowa hits 3 field goals. Minnesota hits 4 field goals. Like, if he didn't make those, the red zone issues would have been even bigger for Illinois last year. So that kicking game was really good. Caleb made 10 of his last 11. The only miss he had was 50-plus yards, I think, against Mississippi State. So he really solidified himself. We'll talk about David Olano. But I feel like with those two, David Olano and Caleb Griffin, you return 2 pretty good kickers. You feel good about your kicker game, especially with Pintone involved in all of that. But Disher, I'm interested to see how he handles things because Sean Snyder came in and was all about aggression. It's all about we're going to be aggressive on kickoffs. We're going to change the game here. And Disher seems to have the similar thing, but midway through last year, Brett Bielema notably got a lot more conservative with not taking many kickoffs, just catch the ball on punt returns. It felt like there was a change mid-season a little bit with the way they handled their special teams.
Yeah, I'm with you. Real quick, I want to make one more point. The bigger place that you missed Caleb Griffin last year when he was out was kickoffs. It was not good without him. It was really just tough. That was the whole deal, right? Sean Snyder going to be more aggressive. Isaiah Williams, you've seen back there. They kick it off with a bang with Peyton Vining, and you think, all right, maybe they will. And then there was a lot of waving to everybody in the stands after that on punts, and that aggression went away. Brett Bielema, he hasn't shared what specifically they are, but he's got his own special teams philosophies, and he has mentioned now it's merging those ideas with Robbie Disher. I tend to think that you bring in someone with Robbie Disher's pedigree and background, and he's probably going to have a very, very, very good say. Like, I don't think the thought should be, oh, well, it's Bielema special teams. Don't there's not going to be very aggressive. I think you bring in Robbie Disher with the plan to let him
Cook.
really you let him cook. There it is. So I that is really interesting to me, but they haven't really, maybe we haven't asked, I guess. We've talked to a lot of people at this point. They haven't really said aggression on, that's not been the vibe given off, but I think a lot of it is that, like, they're very sound in coverage. Robbie Disher's teams are very good kick cover, punt cover, and we'll see. We'll see what that aggression looks like, but they've got the guys back there at those positions to make you think they don't have if they just want to wave, they can put Caleb Griffin back there to catch it.
Yep.
Or you're putting Isaiah Williams back there at punt returner. I expect him to be the starting punt returner. You do that because you want him to change the game. And Robbie Disher has said, kick return, punt return, those are the first plays on offense. Coverage are the first plays on defense. So I don't think you're going to be that conservative.
And Pat Bryant's a kick returner, right? Reggie Love is in the mix, probably a top 3 guy as a kick returner. So they're investing some key playmakers at those positions. Aiden Lawfrey sounds like he's worked his way in, which would be great. I think that's a way to get him on the field, use his speed. I think that'd be ideal, is to get him involved. But it's Isaiah Williams back as your punt returner. It's Pat Bryant, Reggie Love, Aiden Lawfrey is your kick returners. Like, they're not just putting random guy back there. And let's be honest, like, some of those returns, like Peyton Vining was awful against Michigan State. There were 2 botched kick returns, and that hurt you. It didn't cost you, didn't single-handedly cost you the game, but special teams was a huge issue there with Hugh Robertson having struggles. We know Indiana, Hugh Robertson struggles. And this team, according to ESPN's FPI, Football Power Index, dropped from number 28 in special teams efficiency in 2021. We expected a decline if it was Blake Hayes and James McCourt, to number 89 last year. And with how close some of those games were, Joey, some of those losses were, that makes a huge difference.
Yeah, you can't have that. And really, I didn't get the sense that, Brett Bielema announced, I think it was signing day, and Ben Miller spoke with us that he wasn't around, or he wouldn't be in that position. I didn't get the sense that Sean Snyder was much of a thought to bring back.
Yeah.
It was like, yep, he's already not with the program. We're moving on to find somebody else. And maybe Sean just wanted a 1-year deal, but the production wasn't there. Right? There was no production that you'd really have to try to talk him in if he just wanted 1 year. So, yeah, that's got to take a step forward, dude.
And then Illinois investing 2 scholarships into 2023 guys was a sign that, yes, this is an issue. We need to address it. We need to add some competition as well. All right, the big question for me, because no matter who is the kicker, I feel like you got a pretty good option there. I feel like the return game, who the options are. They seem to know who their coverage guys are going to be, and Illinois has done a pretty good job of that the last couple of years. But Hugh Robertson, does he just find consistency? You don't need to be Blake Hayes, but do you find consistency? Because, boy, he was a part of losses. He was. I love Hugh. I love talking to him. I love the story. Great dude. But that was a struggle of a first year. When you look at Indiana, you look at Michigan State kicking into an opponent, your blocker's butt. Like, those things really cost Illinois in these close games and these opportunities that can shift like that. But he also closed the season strong. And it looked like he was building on something, averaging 44 yards per punt on 20 punts during the last 4 games. Remember, he had that 23-yard first down against Northwestern. He ended the season well. And then when we did get to see him in the spring, he looked really good.
Yeah, so let's break down what we know here. Brett Bielema set up the program media day, that Caleb Griffin had started punting. He had done that before. He took a break from it when Hugh got there. It was Hugh and Blake Hayes. He's doing that again. They've managed his kicking in a way that he's not kicking 1,000 field goals and kickoffs and punting all on the same day. They've done a way to manage that. But I get the sense, and I'm curious what you think. Like, I think this is Hugh Robertson's job. Like, I think obviously when Brett Bielema says that, the question is, well, he's gone, or the thought is he's gone. Caleb Griffin's a punter. I think this is Hugh Robertson's job. I think Caleb Griffin's resuming punting does 2 things. It, one, helps you on the travel roster. You can travel Caleb Griffin, and if something happens to Hugh, if he's inconsistent, if he gets hurt, you've got a backup punter without having to take Declan Dooley or Fabrizio Pintone. And maybe you already take Pintone. I don't know. But number 2,
you take maybe another guy who can contribute on special teams.
That's right.
A freshman that you're trying to get a little bit of that experience of maybe being in a big building like that. If you don't have to travel for specialists, you don't want to. I totally agree with you. I have nothing to add to that.
The only thing I want to add is I do think Hugh Robertson doesn't have a very long leash.
Yeah.
Like, I think if he has Indiana again, they might look somewhere else. Like, in that time of the season, now I'm not saying one punt, they're gone with him, but they didn't have a ton of options there last year, especially when you factor in that Caleb Griffin was hurt and Pintone, who sounds like the backup punter as well. And they've got like a collection of backup punters.
Well,
Like, you didn't have a ton of choices.
I've seen Pintone punt. Hugh Robertson's much better. It's just about consistency. And I don't know this, but Hugh talked a lot last year about how Snyder was changing the way he punts. And it feels like that got in his head. And for a guy who was making his first real contribution, maybe that was a mistake. Now, I haven't done tons of reporting on that, but I just thought it was notable. And then late in the year, he seemed to really settle in, find his confidence. And listen, he's a mature guy, and he understands, like, yeah, that sucked. That really sucked to do those things and to make those mistakes. But I tried to get better from it, and I tried to take those things to make me better moving forward. And he did. He got better. So I think he's by easily the punter. I don't think it's a question. And now it's just about, hey, eliminate those huge mistakes. Like a 35-yard punt every once in a while is fine. No 12-yard shanks. No punting into your blocker. Like those things absolutely cannot happen at this level. But when he's good, man, like he pins them inside the 10. He's got a really high ceiling, and we saw towards the end of the year, looked like a middle of the pack Big Ten punter. And I'll mention Declan Dooley here because I know fans are really excited about what he can bring. Really impressive kid, really impressive leg. Robbie Disher says punters usually take more time to develop, and he talked about hang time is the most important thing. I want to turn his leg power into a little bit more hang time because that's what it's about, man. Is being able to get your coverage guys down there so that they don't have a chance at a return rather than having a 20-yard head start into it. So it sounds like he's going to have a year to develop, and then maybe has a job to push Hugh Robertson next year.
Yep, I agree with all that. I just wonder how long. Like, what's the leash here for Hugh Robertson if he struggles again? But there were times, like you said, he looked good. Like he had punts. The Iowa game, he was awesome. He was awesome in that Iowa game. Like this isn't like a case of a guy who was not good all year. He had flashes. Was like, all right.
Mississippi State, he was fantastic. Like the bowl game, he was great. All right, depth chart. I'll just bring up the question. Does David Alano beat out Caleb Griffin? What do you put the odds at?
Can we just talk about, like, that's the question? We're talking about Hugh Robertson's got the job. It's Hugh's job. And now we're talking about Caleb Griffin, who was good last year.
All Big Ten honorable mention Caleb Griffin.
Which is more a testament to how good we think David Alano is and how good we think he's looked.
And we've actually seen that in training camp. Like that's one thing we've been able to see consistently is kicking in special teams. And David Alano's been impressive when we've seen.
Also, yes, I think Caleb Griffin wins the job. Like I get David Alano. If he won it, it'd be a fun story, and people would rah that. And okay, cool, 4 years of this guy. I think Caleb Griffin wins the job. And if he doesn't, then you should be very happy you're going to get David Alano for a while. But I surely do think it's Caleb.
I think Caleb, no matter what's going to be the kickoff guy, no matter what happens. But if he did struggle, what's the leash? Because David Alano's looking pretty good. But Griffin's been there, done it. It's just a way to talk about David Alano looks really good. And the fact that Robbie Disher's saying, man, he's pushing him. He's making our job difficult. But I do think Caleb Griffin is going to win that job. But kicker position looks like it's going to be pretty good for a while. I mean, you go from Chase McLaughlin to James McCourt to Caleb Griffin to David Alano. That's pretty dang good. And then Fabrizio Pintone, who, if you get within 40 yards, seems to make it.
Yeah, I do wonder. Alano's got some leg on him. Could he be a guy they dial it up for those plus 50s? If it's further than 50, do you send Alano out there? Not to say Caleb Griffin cannot, but I mean, Alano's not a big dude, but he's got a big leg.
If the over-under field goal attempts were 0.5 for David Alano, I'm going to go over. I think they get him in a little bit.
Well, I'm glad you asked that. I've shared a Google Doc with you, Jeremy, with a list of.
Is that on there? Okay.
It is. See if I type. It's apparently loud, you tell me. 2.5 was the over-under submitted to us.
Ooh, that's a good number.
That's a really good number. See, I like that some of these, I don't know, I'm not going to change, but some of these are really good numbers. And I don't like that because I got to do more work and I got to think more. Give me the easy ones.
What are your expectations for special teams, Joey? Last year, inconsistency, and it was a problem. Overall season, it was a problem. There were times it was really good with the kicking and the punting, but it was just so inconsistent.
Yeah, I think it'll be more consistent. I don't think, and I say that, I mean, I don't think it's going to cost you a game. It cost him a game last year. I don't think Brett Bielema, the way he's constructed, adding the 2 scholarship kickers or the 2 scholarship specialists, having Caleb Griffin maybe revisit the punt, I think he's positioned himself to not let it cost him a game this year. And I think Hugh Robertson will be better. So I think they'll be better. They're going to climb up from that ESPN number that they had because I think their coverage is going to be good. I think they have guys bought into kick coverage, bought into punt coverage who are going to be good. That's not James Cruz he's going to get a highlight for eviscerating someone on return, right?
Who's the DBs who shine on this side? Like I could see Elijah McCantos. Yeah, Macrosetich, McCantos, because this is a great proving ground. Tyson Rooks, Sabor Kareem.
Anyone who's used a red shirt is probably going to be a 12-game core 4.
Yeah, and I can see a guy like Sabor Kareem potentially being in that, like Malik Ellis. I can see being on something like that. But this is where guys like can really start their career. I mean, Kirby Joseph was a phenomenal special teams player before he did this. Taylon Lightsey was phenomenal last couple of years in coverage. TJ Griffin. I think of some of these gunners that can make plays. Ryan Mead, yeah. So just some of those guys I want to shout out. That Nicaria Harper might be on that.
Yeah, I know the coverage of it doesn't get as much attention. Like you only notice the coverage if it's terrible at Iowa 2021, the Michigan return. But I think that's going to be a pretty solid unit. I think Robbie Disher's got a body of work. They've got dudes bought in. They've got athletic guys bought in. I think that'll be fine. I think the actual kicking, the punting, they'll be better. And kicking was fine last year. I just don't think I think they're positioned well enough to not get burned by this again.
All right. I think this is so important. I think special teams is so important because when I filled out my season prediction, I mean, so many of these games look like toss-ups. So many of these games with the schedule you have, you can win every game, but you can also lose every game. So many of these becomes toss-ups, and special teams play such a big role. We saw that play out last year in a negative way for the most part. We saw it maybe in a positive way the year before. Play out in a good way because their kicking and punting was so good, but it's so key. Like if you want to win a lot of these close games, you got to have an edge on special teams. And to be honest with you, a team that Illinois aspires to be like, a program like Iowa, they never seem to screw up these games on special teams and usually sometimes win them on special teams with big plays.
Over under 0.5 return touchdowns for Illinois.
I'm going under because I got a decade history of not seeing a return touchdown.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think I can reasonably project one.
D'Angelo Bentley remains the answer to a great trivia question. The last line I'd have a punt and kick return for Illinois was D'Angelo Bentley in 2013.
They did have a special teams touchdown. Was that last year when Bailey picked it up in the end zone? No, that was Nebraska 20. That was Nebraska 21. Yeah, and it wasn't Bailey, obviously. It's Kirby, I think.
Yeah. So there you go.
Yeah. Perhaps if David Alano hits a game winner, I keep going back ever, not this year. Remember they dogpiled James McCourt after Wisconsin?
He almost died.
Perhaps lift Mr. Alano up. Do not dogpile him. A friendly message for the safety of David Alano.
Yes. Or Caleb Griffin, whoever it happens to be.
Caleb Griffin is big enough that I think he would be okay. I was just watching something. I'd feel more comfortable if they lifted David Alano.
David Alano listed 5'11", 170.
That is generous.
Love David. Yeah.
He's a great quote, a heck of a kicker.
Great kicker.
If he is 5'11", 170, I will be surprised.
Yeah.